operator, and of course, computer geek. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events. Started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, a ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and the weather nerd.
And I'm Brad. I'm in Eastern Ontario, part-time amateur prepper, constantly trying to better myself.
And I'm the Frugal Gunny. I'm an off-grider, a shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, and a generalist. I'm pretty much into mobility and self-sufficiency as well. And I only relatively recently came to accept that I'm a prepper.
You can't say that anymore. You've been on this show way too long.
Hi, Gunny.
All right. Well, I'm still in denial then.
Okay.
How do you like that?
It's kind of like AA for preppers, so hi, Gunny.
Fair enough.
All right. I'll change that tagline, but yes, I think I'm still in denial.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm Terry. I live in sunny Central Ontario. Official Grand Poobah of the Preppers Meet. Starving indie author, terrible hunter, pathetic fisherman. And I'm still a proud owner, despite all the tariffs and so on. But
you just couldn't bring yourself to say Ford. Just a proud owner.
Oh, did I miss Ford? I'm sorry. I
did.
Just a little bit.
Didn't want
Just a little bit outside.
I appreciate you not dropping the F word right off the hop there, Terry.
Well, Pierre's not here tonight, so
this is true. Nope.
Somebody's got to do it.
All right, and I am Pat and Bunker. I am a proud ATC owner, outdoorsman, sharpshooter, as far as my certification goes, and yeah, I still have a healthy respect for drones that fly overhead that shouldn't really be there. Me and drones just don't get along. I don't like them.
Still a thing?
Like them. Yes, it's still a thing. Because I had 12 of them go over the top of my house about 2 nights ago, and it's just like,
that's not new. That's not newsworthy. Come on.
Well, it's not newsworthy where you're at.
Talk to me when it's 13.
Okay, 17. 17 flew over my house.
Okay, now we can talk about it. Yep.
Okay, all right. But anyway, yeah, thanks for having me on, brother.
And if you want to help support the show, you can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the Tactical Velcro patch available at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help to cover our podcast costs and keep us on the air.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to submit a review wherever you found us. And we want your feedback, even if it's bad. We also invite you to reach out to tell us something that you learned this week. And then you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some freezing content for you in this episode. We're going to start out with some recent news that most likely talks about, I don't know, an ice storm. Update you on our personal preps, which probably have to do with a little thing that might rhyme with ice storm. And then we're going to get into the main topic, talking about the 2025 ice storm, because it was one heck of a ride.
That was.
So let's
but not.
move into the news, shall we?
It's slowly getting warmer outside.
Mm-hmm.
I think
it's gorgeous out today.
Oh, it's 20 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
I think
old man great today.
To take his hibernation.
Oh, what have you done, Brad? What have you done?
Oh, you done screwed up, bud.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Ice storm number 2. Here it comes. No, it is definitely warming up. It's a lot nicer than it has been. That's for sure. It was a gorgeous day today to do yard cleanup and all that. So
20 degrees in Barhaven this afternoon.
Wonderful. Just wonderful.
That was nice. But
well, let's just move right along into what we've done lately for preps.
I opened up a camper this weekend for this year and made sure everything was good inside, and thank goodness no leaks and no furry little critters with 4 legs skittering around at all.
That ought to bring
Sounds
some
good.
more snow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Open up your camper, see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Well, I actually put the slide out last weekend.
You're
and then
brave.
It snowed.
Ah,
And then it snowed, but I just wanted to get in and see how bad it was going to be, and try to start to air it out a little bit. And then I left the slide out, and of course Monday we had like 4 inches come down. Sucked.
Mhm.
But everything is fine in there, so I'm very happy for that one. Did some fuel rotations since last I've been on here. Was very successful in replacing my well pump and all the fun bits and pieces and parts and oh my god that goes along with it. I actually had a few suggestions from our Discord, so I say
Nice.
thanks to everybody who suggested different things. Cleaned out a lot of stuff out of my junk out of my mudroom in anticipation of using that space a little bit better this year. Work, and more work. That's
Awesome.
about it. Jeff?
Well, I did yard cleanup on top of yard cleanup on top of yard cleanup on top of yard cleanup, and I still have tons more to go.
Mhm.
Anybody, the guys in the chat there, they've all seen the pictures of my place, and I'll get into it in the topic, but
Horrible.
it was pretty bad. So I changed the oil in my generators now that I am finished with them and put a few hours on them. Nothing wrong with
Just one or
doing
two.
oil changes, and I refilled all my propane.
Very nice.
It's
So
almost
I'm
like
gonna
you're-
ec-
It's almost like you're preparing for something.
Right?
You never know.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I'm gonna echo Jeff's yard cleanup times 1,000. Although mine wasn't as messy as his, I've still got a good chunk to get through. I did a little bit of generator work, changing the oil and everything, getting everything back into back into just good repair and recovering it from a good hard run of just keeping the place
Did
powered.
you figure out why it wouldn't start that one day?
Yeah, the battery.
Or was the battery? Okay.
Super weird. Yep. So don't know why, but then it was fine after I boosted it and it ran the rest of the time. So
I'm
interesting.
wondering if you had a funeral for your woodshed.
No, it buffed out. It's fine. Yeah, we'll get into that. The woodshed took a little bit of a hit.
A little?
Yes, okay, a lot of bit of a hit.
It's apparently
yeah,
still
we'll,
around. So.
It's around. It's just a pancake now.
Mm.
But that's okay. It's just space efficient now. Yeah.
Oh, whatever you will.
Yep.
We can run with that.
Yeah. I defragged it, Frugal. I defragged it.
Nice.
Oh, good one. Good one. Yeah.
That's
Minimizing
really,
space. Yep.
really old reference for those of you who aren't used to spinning rust.
Go ahead, Frugal.
Oh man, I've had an awful lot on the go since I was last on the show. But I've landed back in the Ottawa area. I'm still getting settled back in, truthfully, but I'm also working on some content, trying to revive my channel from the dead, amongst other things. And I'm doing the changeover already to summer gear in the truck because I've got a funny feeling this no spring is going to turn into an instant summer. And we'll be baking and begging for all of the summer stuff to be ready. So I'm doing that and going through canned food rotations. So there's a fun thing to do.
Well, and as far as down here in the lower 48, trying to build up, well, especially with all the windstorms and everything we've had, definitely knock loose all of the dead wood for dang sure. So I know exactly what's dry, and there's no mystery there. So stacking up a little bit more firewood, getting a little bit more ammo, and trying to do a little bit more practice and do a little bit more training. and getting in on like just like Frugal said, canned food. I've been really going through all of my shelves right now, just trying to see what's good, what's not, what needs to be out front and used really quick. Especially I've had several things that need to be used really quick, and getting some more freeze-dried stuff because through some of what we are going to be talking about, hit me and then these guys a week later. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to go through. So anyway, that's what I've been doing.
Well, me, I'm marked safe from Ice Mageddon 2025. Come through it unscathed. Tested all the generators and did some necessary fuel rotation because we burned through everything we had. 100 liters.
Look at that.
100 liters. We're out with power for 10 days, so it was exciting.
That puts a number to the fuel for you out there who've never tested your own generator and fuel capacity. That's a lot of fuel, Terry.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Do you have a number to yours?
I ran mine exclusively on propane.
Gotcha.
I'll get into that kind of in
Cool.
the thing, but I ran mine exclusively on propane, and it's a big generator. So with the cycling and the on and off, I could have done better, but I knew that I could get propane, so I wasn't as concerned about conservation and that. But I was getting about 2 days out of a 30-pound RV tank.
Wow.
Nice.
And that's a lot of fuel, and that's a lot of propane, guys.
Mm-hmm.
That is. Let's move into the main topic, and then we'll dive deeper into that because it's there's going to be some interesting stuff for sure. So we're talking about the ice storm that came through around March 30th, 2025, and caused one heck of a mess as it came through. Left a lot of people without power for a couple of weeks, and it was a really good test of what we had prepared and a good way to learn ways to kind of fix things up and some weaknesses or lacks in our preps and some things that went really, really well. So it's going to be an interesting episode where we can just kind of reflect on that and tell our stories and talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, what kind of fell in the middle, and what we would change up. Because I know I learned a few things. I'm sure everybody else did too.
Yes.
So I think
Well, I guess
Jeff
I'll-
takes the cake for being out of power for the longest, being 12 days.
Yeah.
I was
Maybe we'll
I was
kick
out
off
for
with
12
Jeff.
days. Now the street was not out for 12 days, but I was. I had several trees come down. I live in a very treed area, good and bad. This is the bad part of it. So I had a large tree come down on the house, but it did minimal damage. I am still waiting for it to be totally removed. I removed what I could, but it's at the point now where it's going to have to be a professional to finish it. So that's there. And luckily, so while the storm was going on and the first big tree come down on the house, I went outside, and of course by then the power was out, and I was looking around, and I'm like, I'm not liking this. And all I was hearing was just constant snapping of branches, falling of trees. And I made, this was about midnight on Saturday night. So 2 weeks ago, Saturday night. And I made the decision to bail out of my house at that point. So I got in my truck and I went to a safe spot and hung out there for a little bit until a friend of mine woke up and checked her phone and said, come on over. And thank goodness, in the meantime, between when I had left and I came back, another very large tree had fallen on my front yard. It took out my hydro wires. It bent over my hydro stack, and it flopped right where my truck was sitting. I would have lost my truck probably. So I guess good things happen. So
Good
I stayed at her place overnight. The next day I came back. I cut up the tree that was blocking the driveway so I could get in. Got the generator fired up. And I've got a GenerLink system, not a Generac, not the big generator. It's a GenerLink. I got the idea from Terry. Terry had one, and I'm telling you, folks, that thing was a godsend. It's so simple to use. You fire up the generator and you plug the cord in. That's all you got to do. You're not messing around with sub panels and all that stuff. Just flip the breaker of things you don't want. High electricity use appliances like my hot water heater and stuff I turned off. But it ran my house. And the big thing for me was my water pump. And the ability to have water and I have water in stock and I ended up helping my neighbor. She has horses. They didn't have power either. They were coming down and filling their water tanks and water jugs and stuff from my pump when my generator was working. So
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Helping out the neighbors.
It worked
that's
out
probably
really
the
well
number
that
one
way.
thing
Yep.
a lot of people didn't realize is that their water pumps weren't going to work. I was doing the same thing.
Yep.
People were coming by for water because
Yep.
everybody in this
Yeah.
area is well and septic for the most part.
Yep.
And nobody had water.
And my the neighbor down the road, she has a sump pump and it does run frequently. And she has a battery backup. That was fine for like the first day, no problem. But on to day 2, and it's like, the buzzer's going off, low power. So I loaned her my backup generator, and she had that for, I think she was out for 8 days. So anyways, that worked out. What did I learn? So what I learned is the bigger generator that I have, that I got in the fall when I got my GenerLink, is a little bit more of a pig on propane than the smaller one. So I would and I do need to have more propane on hand if something like this occurs again. Like I said, I knew I was using it a bit more than normal, or than I had to, because I knew that the local Costco, a 5-minute drive from me, had propane. So I could just get the tank filled, and we'll go from there. So I'll look at different options. Do I get like a really, really big tank, or do I maybe just get a couple more smaller tanks to have on hand?
Maybe a 100-pounder. Costco
Possibly a 100-pounder or 2.
Yep.
The other beauty I had was the wood stove. I was able to cook, warm up food, stuff like that, and keep myself warm. It wasn't abundantly cold. We had one night it was, I think, -6 or -7 Celsius, but outside of that, it was around freezing, a little bit under. So it wasn't super duper cold, but boy, I tell you, it's nice to have, you're outside, you're cleaning up, you're doing that stuff. You come in, nice warm house. You don't have to worry about. So that was great. I have lots of firewood, and I'm going to have probably 5 years of firewood when I'm done.
Yep, you will.
Yeah, so, and a lot of people were, not a lot, but people that I knew were working together. Like I said, I was giving her water for her horses and stuff like that. And then when they got power back, she shows up at my door with a nice dish of rice and sweet and sour meatballs and homemade. And you know what? It's not much, but it's something to say thank you. And I'm like, you know what? Warm food, like just you don't think about it till you don't have it for a long time. But my generator, like I can't complain. It ran, it didn't miss a beat. It, like I say, it's big enough that it ran everything in the house that I needed. I wasn't concerned about that. So yeah, I still, even though I loaned out my small generator to that friend, I still had another large backup one just in case. And obviously I didn't need to use it. But yeah, that's so I still have the tree partially on my house. I'm still fighting with insurance, not fighting with them, but there's just so much work for them. And I'm not knocking them. They've got so much work to do. They're taking care of the people who have bad damage. Their houses are not habitable. They've got to get, they got a hole in their roof that they've got to get fixed. They've got to. So I'm okay with how things have gone. I wish my power would have been on a little bit earlier, but again, I had the generator, I had the Generlink, I had the wood stove. I wasn't in dire straits for anything really.
It's almost like you were prepared, Jeff.
Almost, eh?
Yeah. Wow. It's just like, holy crap, a generator. You had power. You had water. Oh my God. The world wasn't coming to an end for you.
No, it was it was like, it's an eye opener. I've been without power, a day here, a day there, whatever. I haven't experienced something like this, and I'm glad that I was as prepared as I was, or I really would have been foobarred. I would have lost, obviously, with no power, I would have lost all my food.
Yep.
I would have had the wood stove to stay warm, but I would have lost all my food in my fridge and my freezers. Yeah, I've got canned stuff, lots of canned stuff. So I was good there, but believe it or not, just for the mental side of it, just the mental part of being able to flick a light switch and a light comes on, I'm telling you, it makes the world of difference.
Yeah,
100% it does.
Attest to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The prepared Canadian there in the chat's got a good comment that Jeff's experience highlights the importance of networking too, which definitely helped a few people around Jeff to, like you said, get the water for the horses, and the neighbor there down the street to lend her a generator so that she can make sure her house doesn't flood, which is really good.
100%. Yeah, networking is important.
Agreed.
There's a couple things in the timeline that I thought were kind of interesting as we were going through this. For the first little while, we've got the whole home generator here, so kind of the same setup as Jeff. Good to go with power. Nothing really impacted us there. Being able to flip the light switches work. The furnace was going. We could do all the major stuff. The biggest inconvenience power-wise is we couldn't dry our laundry, so we just had to hang it up. So that went well. But I found it interesting that about a day and a half in, all of a sudden, the internet kicks out. So that gave us our timeline of how long their battery backup goes for, right? So because we've never gone like to the point where that's just cut out. It's like, okay, so now we kind of have a rough estimation of when that type of communication is going to disappear in like a power grid down kind of situation, right? And then all of a sudden the cell towers dropped. It's like, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're cutting power to some things as they're working in the area or doing something. But no, they were down for a day or two as well. I was like, this is interesting. So for a while there, we had no internet, we had no cell communication, no power outside of having the generator. And that all happened within about like a day and a half to 2 days. And you could really just kind of feel the tension ratchet up when that happened. Thankfully, like the cell towers came back, so it was down for maybe a day and a half, 2 days tops, and then they got that back going. But it was interesting just to kind of hear the rumors of the towers didn't have sufficient backup, they didn't have sufficient batteries, they didn't have anything like that, because I never really experienced those going down, right? And the internet usually sticks around during the power outages, but that disappeared too, right? So helped with the social media reset and the internet reset. That was bonus. The kids are not asking for to watch their videos or do anything like that anymore. They've detoxed from that, and we were keeping that up. So
Good.
that's awesome. But it was
Nice
it was
work.
just interesting. It was interesting to get that timeline, right? Because we've never had this kind of mass power down across a large area for such a period of time.
Right.
So getting that timeline together, just what to expect when, was good. The generator ran beautifully, no issues at all. Interesting, and I know everybody's going to be shocked by this as soon as I say this. The 2-meter ham repeater in town here, couple of hiccups
There
in
it
the
is.
beginning. There it is. We had one go down, so the main repeater here in Aurelia went down after about a day. They only have a certain amount of battery backup, and then it was offline. But the big one here, the Lake Simcoe repeater, ran the whole time. And there were guys on there that I hadn't heard on the air ever using it. Everybody making comments about, it's still running, it's still operating. It didn't miss a beat through the entire event, which was fantastic because we had ways to get information, right? So people were on air going, okay, gas stations in town are closed, but there's a gas station out on the outskirts that's open right now. It has fuel. They're providing 20 liters a car. Or if you go here, you can get gas, or there's a grocery store here. And they were just relaying information as they were out and about, checking things out. And you could just check in throughout the day and say, what's happening here? What's going on here? Does anybody have power? Does anybody have water? And it was nice to have that level of communication still, and lots of people utilizing it. So it was, that was fantastic.
That says to me that there's a big community down there that's well prepared.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was it was neat to see, and a lot of ham operators just came out of the woodwork that I haven't heard on the repeaters, right? So it was kind of neat there, and a lot of people offering help too, right? Now we're only about 4 or 5 days in, right? So everybody's still kind of happy and civil and all good, right? But they were all willing to kind of offer help, and if anyone needs help with getting trees or gas or fuel or food or whatever. So people were that was kind of neat to hear as well. And then dealing with the kids, that was interesting because they haven't really been through this before, right? There's been like the odd power blip, but so the first day was okay. Second day, they kind of start realizing that things are different, right? Because some of the lights in the house don't work, right? Because that's just the way the generator is. The TV, we're not using it. The generator's running. That was one thing that kind of threw them off as well, because now there's this constant sound humming along the side of the house. So they just started to realize that something's off and something's different. So they start to ask questions, right? But we got the games out, we played the games. They found flashlights. What kid doesn't love flashlights, right? So they go running around the house. The only problem is I realized, okay, we've got 3 flashlights here, they're rechargeable, but they would run around with 2 of them and burn them out throughout the day. Right? So I got to add some more flashlights to the kit, right? Just not something I would never have thought of, right? You use them at night, you charge them up during the day, and why would they ever be burned out during the day? Well, because the kids play with them. Never dawned on me, right? So we're going to get some play flashlights. So they got some flashlights to play around with if we ever get into this situation again. Same thing as Jeff, the night of, as I hear the cracking and the snapping and the popping of trees, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is going to be something. But went to bed and woke up in the morning to our giant cedar in the front yard on the ground. So like, all right, like, okay, so that didn't think that was going to happen. Looked around, and we have a bunch more trees on the property, and went, that cedar came down pretty close to the cars, so zip them onto the front lawn. So just right up on the lawn, just parked them there. I'm like, don't care, because I'm kind of looking around, that there's nothing else. Like, that cedar has already fallen. That's the only thing that was kind of within range. Nothing else is going to fall. Park them up on the front lawn, and about 20 minutes, half hour later, boom, more trees down right where the cars were. Like, okay, so that was a good call.
Yep.
Let's see what else I have here. Same as Jeff, I ended up loaning out my backup generator. People started asking for it after a while, and so we loaned it out to some folks that needed it. Same thing for their sump pumps. They had a generator, but it wasn't powering everything that they needed, so they had to either plug their pumps in, or they had to plug their fridge in, or they had to plug whatever else they had to plug in, but they couldn't run the pumps at the same time they were doing other things. And that was a problem because with all the ice starting to melt, the basements and the sump pumps are starting to run constantly. So they grabbed our second generator and put some hours on it, about 40 actually, which it's good to see that it ran and did its thing. Same thing, we run it exclusively on propane. And they took about a 20-pound can of propane, and they were able to run it. So, which is good. And it came back in one piece. So that's always nice to get things back that you loan out in one piece and still operating. So, because you never know, right? What else?
Always a bonus.
Yeah. And then, of course, the checking in on neighbors, doing a lot of that, seeing if everybody was okay, if they needed anything. We had running water, which was, like I mentioned, a big thing, because I don't think a lot of people realize that that's it. Like, a lot of us here are on well and septic, right? So no power, no water, which, yeah, okay, you can deal with that for a day or two, but we were out for about eight or nine. So yeah, after about day 3, you kind of start missing the water, right? So we had the same thing. We had some people come by and grab some water and check, ask to grab some water and such. And so that was interesting. And then our poor woodshed. So I went out because we've got we've got a wood burning fire. Yeah, and everybody here in the panel that's chuckling away, they've seen the pictures. So we've got a wood burning fireplace here. So of course I decided we're going to fire up the fireplace and kind of, even though the furnace is running here, we may as well use the fireplace and kind of offset a little bit. And went out and grabbed a bunch of wood from the woodshed, brought it in, got our fire going. And about 20 minutes after I went out and grabbed the wood, one of our pretty tall pine trees decided it was just going to lose its hat, and it came tumbling down and completely flattened the woodshed. So yeah, it is no more. But that's okay.
Well,
I wanted a new shed anyways.
Yeah, there's some more wood for your woodshed. It just planted itself right on top of your woodshed.
It just figured, you know what? I'm going to save you the work, and I'll just fall it right through the roof, right onto the pile. And that was it. So,
you can buck it up and just put it right on the wood pile, right there.
Exactly. But yeah, so there's lots of cleanup now, lots to do that way. Like I said, the generator did its thing. We were good food wise, we were good comfort wise. For the most part, everything worked just the way I kind of hoped it would. A couple little tweaks with like the flashlights and maybe a few other little things for the kiddos to do, but for the most part, it I think we fared out pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So something to keep in mind about the cell towers, if it's a bad enough emergency, you as the general public won't have access to the cell tower. But the emergency services will, like the government or the cell provider, like Rogers, TELUS, all those big guys, they'll kick off all of the us common folk and whatnot, and leave all the emergency services able to access it, so that they can still have access to it. So
interesting.
They're not being tied up with you calling across the street to your neighbor to say, "Hey, you doing okay?" No. Get up off your butt and go over and walk across the street and check on it.
Yep.
But it's the emergency services that they want to be able to communicate, and the government and the hospitals and the townships and whatnot want to communicate. I found that out when I did a contract with the Red Cross, and one of the guys I worked with was in disaster services, and he had told me that they will routinely kick you off in an emergency. So it's not that the cell towers went down. It's us common folk don't have access.
Gotcha.
All the towers out here where I am, and I've been lots and lots of places around here. Every time I pass a new cell tower, I'll try to slow down and have a look at the tower.
Yep.
And the base of it. There's always a big heat pump, a small generator, and like 3 or 4 propane tanks there. Those things last a long time. To power that up, to keep it more and more cool depending on the season. So you saying 2 days in the cell towers are out? Nah, they just kicked you off. That's my opinion anyways.
Sure, we could agree to disagree on that, but sure.
Okay, yeah.
I might know a couple guys that work at the towers and may have said that the batteries were completely dead, but
Oh yeah. Okay. Like
yeah.
I said, I've seen that too, but I have also seen like I
Yeah.
said, lots of the cell towers
It
have
was-
big generators and they
Oh yeah,
run
yeah, no,
constantly.
100%, yeah, 100%. But it came from a credible source that things were
Yeah.
not running exactly how they should have in a scenario like that.
Yeah, well, it depends on how that tower is set up, whether on
Yes.
propane or diesel or
Yep.
gas or, you know,
Yes.
what
And if
is
we
it?
moved,
Nothing, just a battery bank that,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
battery bank's only going to last a few days probably. They're,
Yep.
they're not designed for being out for a
Yep.
week. So
You are
I
absolutely.
found it was interesting as well, depending on where we moved around. So we went into town, we would have signal. We came back out, nothing. So it was kind of weird too. Like that kind of lines up with what I was being told, because some of the towers would, be properly outfitted and have proper generators and proper battery backup and such, and some were just failing and not working. So that kind of makes sense that a lot of them just weren't spec'd out the way they should be, and hopefully that's just a lesson learned for the providers, right? To kind of clean things up.
Yep.
So that if they do
Because,
fall back into emergency mode, and they got to kick us off, like Brad's saying, they can still get that bandwidth to the emergency services that would obviously need it, right?
because I'll have a story once it gets down to me on that too. So,
and I like Dan, well, not like, but Dan's comment in the live chat there. But he had the issue with the sump pump, no backup. So at 2 a.m., he's sitting there all night emptying it with a bucket.
Oh,
I heard
Heart-
so
How
many
has it
stories. I heard so many stories of people going for like 48 hours plus, and people like running shifts in the house of just running buckets out of their sump wells because they had no other way to do it. And that actually reminds me, Jeff brought up a good point as well. A lot of people have just like that marine battery backup, which is going to get you through most power outages, so it's fine. But a major one like this, like you said, it runs 24 hours, if that, and then now what?
Pooch.
Right?
This is probably the hardest way to learn just how much power a pump
Mhm.
draws. The only thing I can think of that draws as much power is like a heating element that's
Mm.
using
Steel saw.
pure AC. Those will take as much power as you give them. But
And then some.
But a pump, will definitely draw a ton of power. So I was really curious to see what your experiences were. I'm kind of surprised at the comms being knocked out so quickly.
I was too.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be that quick.
No, that tells me there's probably some maintenance routines that are missing and some of that cell infrastructure, because we all know that batteries die after a while, right? And usually those kind of off the beaten path locations, they're going to use a lead acid type battery, and those are fine, but they don't do deep discharges well. All you need is a few good deep discharges, and those lead acid batteries, they're effectively shot, and you won't know it until a 3 or 4 day event like this kicks in. So, aging your batteries and knowing how old they are, I think, is a really big key takeaway. And that, once again, we're all on our own.
Now, there's a big assumption on my end about the battery backup dying versus maybe a tree fell and took out some infrastructure for them that they had to fix to get us back. But it came back faster than I would think fixing the infrastructure would take. So I am assuming that it's the battery backup there that failed and not something more catastrophic. I should clarify that.
Very cool. Well, this is all good info points. I'm curious. I didn't get much. Did you lose power for very long there, Brad? No way.
I lost power for about an hour. That was it. But we all knew the storm was coming. We all had time to go and get the things we needed. We filled up. So I have two generators here. A small one we go with the camper with, and a big one that I got last year from the preppers meet that Jeff was able to help me out with. But I never pulled that one out. I had the small one in the mudroom. I keep it there all winter just for this kind of thing. And I just put some extra fuel into it, made sure it was good to go. Had my cords inside to keep them warm. So if I had to, they're still pliable to move them around outside. Filled up some extra 5-gallon buckets. It was right around that time when I was dealing with the pump issue. So I already had a bunch of 5-gallon buckets inside to deal with the no pump issue that I might have experienced. So I filled up a couple more of those. We went out and I filled a propane tank up to make sure I had some for the barbecue if needed. Got a few other things, and then sat back and sat out actually on the front porch and listened to the ice crackling and the trees falling. 3 years ago, I had my last big tree come down on this property, so I wasn't worried about any other trees. There's nothing big that's going to come down and hit my house. Pulled the trucks in and a little bit closer and fueled them up. Charged up the battery banks and changed out batteries and flashlights, and that was it. Just waited, but nothing happened for us. But because of all of this, I have already been interested in getting the GeneraLink device that Jeff has, and I've actually showed it to the family and what it can do, whatnot, just the literature and whatnot. And this is probably going to be a good push. That by this point, at the next disaster event, whatnot, that I may have one installed in the house by that point, and I can get mine through a good supplier in town, because the company I work for has a good account with them. I can get a pretty good deal on one, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
Sweet.
That was it. I didn't have anything else. I sat back and watched YouTube videos and heard all the stories from other people and laughed at Jeff and Eric's misfortune and went, "Ooh, I hope they're all right." But
All right,
Oh, dear.
Pierre, I'm gonna do you right, you lucky fucker.
There it is.
41 minutes.
So it's
dear.
funny. It's funny too. I'll step in quick if that's okay, Brad. So Dan mentions again that he said his friend couldn't find one till 1 week after the storm in a different city for a generator. So the Home Depot, our local Home Depot, I went in there to get some rubber patch for the few spots in the roof that I could find that were damaged. And there was a Furman, just like what me and Eric have, sitting there on a cart. And I kind of stopped, and the guy said, "Oh, it's sold." And I said, "It's okay. I don't need it. I'm fine." I said, I didn't think you guys would have any generators. And this was about 10:15, and he said the truck arrived at 9:00 with a full skid of generators, and he said this is the last one. So in an hour and 15 minutes, the whole skid of generators was gone.
And that brings up a good point, actually. About a week, maybe just a bit shy of this happening, you start to see the reports of generator theft. It actually took a lot longer than I thought.
I was just going to say that. A week?
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good.
It was probably about 5 days in, 5 or 6 days in, and all of a sudden you start to see, people complaining about their generator being stolen, or lock your generators up, or that kind of stuff happening. So it was, it's just interesting to see. It's always, most of us already thought about that, but not everybody does, right? I would have thought it would have happened a lot sooner. But yeah, the generators were, just flying off the shelves. They actually there was a truck actually up at the LCBO just up the road from me that came and parked in the parking lot one day and was selling generators out the back. Probably the stolen ones. It was actually a legitimate company selling like new generators, but they were just selling them out the back of like this transport.
Why would
truck,
that not surprise me? It's enterprise.
Yep.
And the other thing, of course, when stuff like this happens, is opportunism. And so I was, bored one day, and of course, because I had nothing else to do, and I was on Facebook Marketplace, and generators that 2 weeks ago were $400 and $500, $1,200, $1,400, $1,500. The exact generator that I have, that I paid $400 for, somebody was selling it on Marketplace. They wanted $1,500 for it.
Yep, insane. They were going to deliver it though, Jeff. So that makes the difference, right?
Oh yeah, I guess.
With the price of gas these days, I can understand.
Yeah. Gary in the live chat's got a good point and says, "How many generator returns?" And then, like Jeff was saying, I just found it interesting how many you start to see the reports. So Hydro One does a great job, gets everybody online as fast as they can, and you start to see all the power kind of coming back in areas. And you instantly see people trying to sell the generators they bought 2 or 3 days ago to get them kind of through the little gap there without having power. But then I
Unreal.
found it even funnier. You see people in the comments going, this can happen again, right? Just put some fuel stabilizer in it, get it ready, put it in the garage, tuck it in the back corner, look at it every once in a while. Like these have to be listeners. And just hold on to it, right?
Absolutely.
But so many people are like, okay, cool, hydro's back, we're good. And just they want to offload their generators and things like that. And it just I kind of step back. I'm like, first off, is this one stolen? Nope, they got the box, they got the receipt, they have all that. They literally just don't think they need it anymore.
Oh yeah,
So,
crazy, eh?
Silliness.
Crazy.
Dave, Dave, that's in Canadian dollars.
So I went for a drive myself. I had no issues with it here. I was in the Ottawa area. It all went well. I just went through all the food preps, and so we didn't go up very much. But I did go for a drive this weekend. And what I noticed is something that I had no doubt of, but it's, you can't really talk about it until you go out and witness it for yourself. The power lines have not really been very well maintained. Sorry, hydro people, I'm throwing you under the bus. If you don't maintain the areas that your power lines run through, you don't have a hope in an ice storm. And so what we've had here is very little care paid to our infrastructure for, I think, a few too many years. And it's in an area where customers don't see it every day, right? You see something if your sewer line gets backed up. You'll know really quickly that the city's not maintaining its sewer lines. But out there in the forest, you've got these power lines that are running through hundreds of kilometers. And an easy way to save money when the gas is going through the roof, carbon tax, is to simply say, well, you know what, we're going to peel back a little bit on the budget for tree maintenance and clearing and line clearing this year. We're only going to go into the areas where people can really see it. And so what you've got going on there is a whole lot of power failures that cascade from very far away, and you're all being affected. And so, yeah, I'm throwing a little bit of shade there at those hydro people because that's how they're doing it, right? They're ultimately, I think that's what's going on. But that being said, I was very fascinated to hear about your power draw and what the pumps are taking up. And I urge people to maintain their generators. I've heard a lot of generator failure stories, not necessarily from you here, but from other friends of mine. And that's because few people even realize that you should be doing maintenance on your generator, like changing your oil or, checking your spark plugs and all that good stuff. So I just urge everybody to keep on that. And that's all I got for you, man. But I love hearing a bit more. I think Terry was also out of power for quite a while. So I want to hear from his end. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Between well, it started out here with when the ice storm first started. There's 2 generators in the corner just down from my place and one right in front of the house, and all 3 of them cooked off. There was flames. It was like arc welders going off out there. It was unreal. I got some videos of it. It's pretty wild. And then between here and where my niece lives, 5 kilometers up this gravel road, there's 35 power poles were down. 35, like a bloody war zone up there. Wow. It was unbelievable how many power poles were down.
I had heard, and I don't know if it's, I can't verify it. I mean, we all know how rumors just get traction and off they go. But that hydro was running out of poles, and they were getting like we had.
They're bringing them in.
They were bringing them in from other provinces, like New Brunswick brought a bunch of linemen in to help, and they brought poles with them.
Yep. We had
last I heard it was over 1,800 poles is what I was hearing.
Yeah, a lot of poles down, just unreal. And the roads, my goodness, there's the roads were blocked off with trees down and everything. And again, we all hear the stories about so and so's got a generator, but they never tested it out and it wouldn't run. And so, despite all the warnings that this was coming up, never checked it out. Some people didn't have any fuel. Fortunately, we had lots of fuel, so we were helping a few people out. We had generators out on loan to a few folks, and it was just something else. and a lot of people with the Generac systems were running out of propane, and because there were so many trees down, the propane trucks couldn't get in to refill them with propane, and a lot of folks didn't get topped up before the weather went bad, even despite calling and asking to get topped up. So yeah, there's one house we were watching was they have a 200-pound dedicated propane tank for their Generac, and they were down South Holiday Inn. So we were just keeping an eye on their place. So the Generac was working great, but it would use 10% a day of a 200-pound tank. 10% a day. Of course, the thing was running all the time. But our own place, like we were fine here for the most part. We were just like any other day. We had a big 1100-watt generator run the whole house. That worked good for the first 6 days, and then bloody old thing packed her in. She would it was put out voltage, but no amps. It just wouldn't put out anymore. So we had to push that one aside and bring the other one out of the stash, and it was just a 4,000 watter. So we had to be a little more selective of what we could run on that one. But the way this place is set up, well, we got a wood stove, and the water heater and the house is heated with hot water heat through this hot water heater and soil fire. So it didn't take. I checked it with my meter. It only take 700 watts once in a while when it started up to run the hot water heater. So we never had any issues. And yes, the sump pump was running. And I also have one of those solar battery packs, 5,000 watts of power there. We just had that hooked up to the generator dedicated. It'd run all our small appliances on the house without any issue. The only thing it wouldn't run is the well pump. The well pump drew too much power. We had to have the generator for that. But I bought that for my RV. That wasn't planned for the house use anyway. But I give it a good test. I'm real happy with how that thing performed.
That's the one you had to meet last year, right?
Yeah. It worked.
Okay,
It worked great.
Nicely.
Good to hear.
Yeah, it worked great. So we weren't really inconvenienced a whole heck of a lot. We had people in, and we had folks in for food and so on like that. Well, just because we had lots, and we had a few folks in for stuff and helped a few folks out with things. And let's see what else. I guess the big takeaway was the loss of the internet and communications. Ours were gone for about 6 days. You couldn't call anybody. You couldn't check in on anybody. Unless people are really good at staying in contact, and it was usually physical by coming and going, that you knew where anybody was, because you just could not get a cell signal or a text message out. So that was the big takeaway from this. And again, the communities, the lack of communication. Message wasn't getting out that all the local fire halls were a warming station and people could go there to get water and so on, but nobody knew about it. So that message didn't really get out for quite a while before word of mouth started going around and people started learning about that you could go there. But none of them were open 24/7. So at night, if you didn't have anything, well, where did you go?
Yeah.
You were back to the place unless you had somewhere to go. And some people, heck, it was comical because these people, they know that you're set up, but no, they were freezing in their place. But instead of stopping in, they carried right on, went down to the city, and got a hotel room for a couple of days.
Yep.
So you're giving them shit and saying, "What the hell did you stop in?"
Right.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
people are funny. People are funny.
It's funny. I had the exact same scenario. I knew a bunch of people that, no generators, no power. They were starting to get cold. So I've got the couch. I've got a guest room. You're welcome to come over, warm up, have a warm shower, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And same thing. Wouldn't do it.
No, it's funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway from all this is how quickly Canadian civilized infrastructure goes to fully off the grid, no comms. Like I lived for a year overnight, and I surely expected it to last a little bit longer before it petered out for you guys. That was my biggest surprise.
Yeah,
that your comms went out so quickly.
Ours was almost instantly here.
So if anything, I think this storm is going to help sell more ham radio equipment and maybe drive people to more independence in their comms, because we figured out the generator thing a long time ago. Some people are still figuring out the whole oil change and maintenance thing. But I think this is the biggest takeaway. We're pretty weak in our infrastructure here. And that was just an ice storm, right? That wasn't like a consciously wanting to attack us enemy or threat level.
Yeah, that's just Mother Nature.
This was a small ice storm.
A wee one. That's right. That's right. So So I hope everybody is as motivated as I am to get at least some sort of basic form of ham instruction and equipment. And I don't mean the Baofeng. The Baofeng is just a wee little radio. I've played with them. But they don't reach quite as far as real ham gear, right?
Here, you could have made it with a Baofeng if you needed, right? It was nice to have the fancy HTs or handy talkies or handhelds, however you want to call them. If you had a Baofeng in your back pocket, you'd have had comms in this, at least in this area, because that Lake Simcoe repeater was up and running. But it has a massive footprint. It's up high, so it's easy to get with the Baofengs. But hey, it's your gateway drug in. If that's all you can afford, grab that and then come on into the dark side.
Yeah, I'm in.
I'll put a little caveat on top of that. It's about the same way around here. We have a really good repeater up here that has a generator and like at least 5 days of fuel on top of it, just like the repeater you're talking about. And that thing is awesome. I mean, they keep it up, they keep it prepped, and it's awesome. And that's one of the things we used. But anyway, I'll wait till it gets back around to me and on my storm system. So those are good systems to have.
100%.
Very, very.
Now to add a little insult to injury here, because we've talked about ice quite a bit and that having kind of a bad impact on things. We had after like the ice storm was still around, like power was still out. We had like a thunder and lightning snow kind of storm, which was interesting to say the least. But also because Mother Nature was still pissed off, decided to strike the local sewage treatment plant with lightning.
Great.
So didn't affect like myself, but the folks in the city that are on sewer and are on city water and such, or in the town, now they have no power. There's some pumps are not running because they don't have generators, and the sewage system is backing up into their houses.
Oh dear!
So just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, that happened. It's like, wow. Like, what are the chances? Now the city moved quick. They got it back up and running in a couple of days. They were doing the best they could to divert and let things run. But a lot of people had sewage back up into their places as well. So it's just like, what else is coming?
The sump pump thing surprised a lot of folks too.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when civilization goes down.
And a lot of folks, well, you did not, I won't say a lot, but I heard a few stories about, well, I got a battery backup for my sump pump. Yeah, it doesn't last that long, and you really needed a generator hooked up. And I never thought to hook the generator up to the pump. You know, it's like a lot of folks didn't really know how to juggle things around. Like it was interesting because they'd have an electric heater on, and that's all they had on. And meanwhile, their freezer's thawing out, and they're wondering, what are we going to have to throw this food up? Why didn't you plug the heater in? Unplug the heater, plug in the freezer.
Plug in the fridge.
Cycle things back and forth a little bit. They had a generator and they had fuel, but they didn't think about that.
Alternate.
Yeah, didn't think about alternating.
Yep.
Common sense is not very common.
By now, that common sense doesn't go very far anymore.
No, it doesn't. Thank you, Jeff.
Common sense is not very common.
It sounds like they almost need a 1, 2, 3 type. You know, this is how you do it. Okay, 1, disconnect all of this. 2, fire up the generator. 3, let it warm up.
Ooh.
Because a lot of people will just go, oh, I don't know why it stalled. I just ran it and tried to throw it all on. Well, you got to let the Jenny warm up a little bit before you put it under load, right?
Yeah.
I guess we have to write all that down in a 1, 2, 3 type manual, right?
Yeah.
Still won't read it.
They still won't read it because people can't retain more than 3 or 4 things.
Like you say, Gunny, they plug everything in and then they start the generator and they wonder why it only lasts, 3 or 4 or 5 days and then it's smoking like crazy and it's garbage. Well, because you
overloaded.
Or like when I would start my generator, I would unplug my fridge, my freezer. So I would start the generator. And the lights would come on and stuff like that. I'd plug the fridge in, let it sit for 5 minutes, plug the freezer in, let it sit for 5 minutes. Okay, that's done. Now I can you'll love this. Now I can turn on my Keurig machine and have my coffee. Because if I don't have a coffee, you do not want to be close to me, especially when all this is going on.
That's right.
Justin there in the live chat.
No.
We need to get him on to tell us some stories.
I would love to hear his.
Oh, yes.
I would love that.
Insurance adjuster, you'd be amazed at the stories I hear from people after storms.
Oh,
I would, but I wouldn't all at the same time. And I'd love to sit with a coffee and listen to him around the fireplace.
A quick tip I'll just throw here because it's free. Living off the grid for a year in a dry cabin, you'll find out really quickly the things that are really unnecessary to run on a battery that you could totally have another useful alternative source for. And one of them is boiling water. There's zero need for y'all to be using electric to boil water. We've got so many other good fuels to boil water with, but I do get the caffeine gig. So for me, when I was doing the coffee press was my ultimate winner for off-grid and no power situations, because all you got to do is get that water hot, throw it in there with your coffee, and then you can press it down. Just
you
I easily could have done it on my wood stove. That's not. That's not the issue. It's just
spoiled Jeff.
Hey, but I get it. And power outages, when you've got everything else is down, it's the little things that will make the difference. Other than I got Jenny. Yeah, it's the little things, right?
There is nothing better than being able to make a coffee.
Cowboy coffee. You just boil it for a couple minutes and you just take it off, let it go, put a little bit of cup of cold water on the top of it. You're ready to go. It's perfect cowboy coffee.
We were pretty pampered. We had the Keurig machine running off the solar generator and the toaster, and life was pretty good.
Gucci kid.
Oh, the hell with you!
I'll go up one level and fancy.
It was pretty good.
One level up in fancy, I had my Nespresso coffee maker running. It was
there you go.
Nicely.
Only because Starbucks was closed and you couldn't get to Starbucks. That's why.
Right. Well, there's only two ways. It's cowboy or the wrong way. That's the two kind of coffee.
That's cycling back onto the generators for a second. And another thing I found interesting is a lot of people didn't realize that they have to give the generator a break every once in a while.
Oh yeah, the duty cycle thing.
Run it, and you can't just run it straight for like 6 or 7 days.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Like that kind of caught me off because I would turn mine off. Like I said, I got the whole home generator, like the Generac, right? But we would run it, and then every morning I'd get up, I'd turn it off, and it would be off for an hour. I'd do my oil checks, I'd check it around, I'd just make sure everything looks good, and then we just let it sit. Let it cool down, let it rest, and then fire it back up.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of people were running theirs for days on end, and then all of a sudden, I was getting some messages about, how to, is there anything I should be doing with this? I'm getting kind of nervous. Haven't run it for this many days, or what else should we do? Or like, have you turned it off? Well, why would we do that? Was the reply, right? But you got to give it a rest because you can't just, but we're so used to having that power 24/7. It's a comfort thing, right? So I get why you want to just run it constantly, but you gotta give those things a
hydro
rest.
That comes into the house that you don't see, it never stops.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another thing there too with one of those. Was with the Generac, there's one place my gal friend looks after. it had the Generac system, was an older system, so it's been used a few times for years, but it shut down because it was low on oil. So we had to top it up with oil. Now, where are you going to find oil sometimes if the power goes out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do have one of those systems, make sure you've got some extra oil. Thankfully,
100%.
I looked up the specs for it. It uses exactly the same oil as my car does. So that's what we used in it. But,
Nice.
Or
But-
just make it a Kirkland generator like Eric did.
Good old Costco. Yep. We got
Yeah.
a couple of
Costco.
boxes of the oil that generator takes and ready to go.
Costco 530.
yeah.
Terry's point is good here. Your
But-
generators have
no, but 100%.
consumables, right? So
Yep,
yeah, you should
100%.
have your spare spark plugs.
Yeah. Make sure
Yes.
you have spares.
Yep.
You can clean off a spark
Yep.
plug, right? But it's just so much faster to throw a fresh one in, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
speaking of
And-
that, here's a funny story for you guys. So I already had a maintenance kit ready to go for my generator set aside. I had all the oil set aside, all good to go. But I realized about 4 or 5 days in that I'm getting to the point that I'm starting to think maybe I'm going to hit that 200-hour mark and I'm going to have to do this service.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What if this goes longer than that? Right? So here's where it gets funny. Ice Mageddon's gone through, infrastructure's down, power's gone, everything's gone to shit. And at least we've got internet back at this point, enough that I can hop onto Amazon and I order 2 more maintenance kits. And what shows up the next day? The maintenance kits. Amazon didn't miss a beat.
Good old Amazon.
They must have had generator backup.
Yeah, they must have, right? So
Here's another thought.
through
here, too.
all of this,
That's
Amazon
fucking
Prime,
hilarious.
Amazon
Oh
follow
my
through.
god.
and they dropped off 2 more maintenance kits, so I was good for a while.
Wow.
And the
No,
maintenance
another-
kits were on sale. It's like they saw me coming.
Another thing you have
Scott
locally
makes,
here too.
makes an interesting
Oh,
comment
that's-
here, too, that he says,
Oh.
interesting looking at the capacity of your generator and underutilizing it. A 5,000 watt generator running a 1,500 watt heater. I was kind of in that boat. My generator's 9,000 watts, and I was running like my lights, a fridge, 2 freezers, coffee machine every once in a while. I disconnect or I unplug my hot water heater. I probably could have run it. And if things would have been different, I may have. But I knew this was going to be longer than a couple of days. And the more it's like a car, it's like anything else. The harder you work it, the more fuel it uses. So yeah, was I underutilizing my generator? I was, but I was also not using as much fuel as if I would have been working it hard for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, full load. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
So Jeff, is your hot water tank, is it electric or propane?
Everything's electric. My whole house is
Yep.
electric. Now,
Yep.
this is kind of I've always considered and thought of propane. You know, if this was 20 years ago, I probably would. I don't know now, but I mean, the thought's always there. I mean, obviously, I had the wood stove. I had the barbecue. I used it once or twice. But and I should say I did use a burner on my stove just to try it, and it worked. And you know, and yes, Dave, I know who needs a refrigerator if there's ice and snow. The temperature was around freezing. It wasn't,
Yeah.
in my mind, it wasn't cold enough to be putting stuff outside.
Yeah, it was definitely fluctuating. It wasn't like if there was no other option, it was a valid option to explore and maybe use. But if you got the generator and you got the ability to run the fridge and the freezer, why change it, right?
They don't draw much power.
If you,
Fridge
if you
and
don't
freezers
have, if
draw
you don't
very
have a
little
generator,
power.
but there's still snow and ice on the ground, and you have a cooler,
hmm
fill the cooler up with ice and snow. Stick your stuff in
Yep.
it. It'll keep
Yep.
it okay.
100%.
for
It was an
Exactly.
option if you're in a bad spot. If you're in a bad spot, it was an option. But if you got the generator,
Yeah.
run it and
And
keep everything where it is.
hmm
yeah.
I'm going to
and-
echo Terry's words here on freezers and fridges not drawing a heavy load. It's absolutely right. If they're a compressor type freezer fridge, but I just want to stress that you want to avoid the Peltier cooler
Yes,
type models that plug into a cigarette
Uh-huh.
lighter. Those are
Yeah.
just
they're
junk.
power hogs. Yeah.
They will drain your
Oh.
battery flat and leave you wanting for cooling still, or just avoid them, leave them behind, and do what
Yeah.
Terry suggests: get a proper compressor type fridge, even a little bar fridge.
Mhm.
Will
Yeah.
draw
Mhm.
less power, right? So if you've got to
Yep.
just take care of your essentials, move them into there. But avoid those other little types of coolers. They're no good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had a lot of the over the road truckers uh, just running up and down the road, and yeah, exact same thing. They said, no, those they're crap, and you might as well just chuck them out the next way station. And yeah, yeah, just big ass power draw. Yeah, they suck.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Better off
beast.
with a foam cooler and some snow.
Mhm.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
One other thing I was actually able to test. I didn't mention this before. My battery backup for the ham shack here, because the ham shack is also where I do the podcast from, is not on the main generator for the house. So it's power goes out, it's done, right? There's nothing here. So I was able to take my batteries, unplug what I have set up on my little power distribution block here, plug in the batteries, everything worked exactly how I
Mhm.
thought it would. It was
Nice.
fantastic. I could fire up the HF, I could fire up the UHF,
Yep.
VHF radios here. Can't run the amplifier. Oh well. And it worked
Yep.
exactly how I figured it would, which is fantastic.
Yeah, you're still getting signal out, and you're
Yep.
getting contacts back, right?
Yep, 100%. Yep.
Yep.
So that
And
that worked quite well.
and I'll go ahead and get into my story. A week before everybody had the big ice storm here in Nebraska, at least right up the great big streak right through Tornado Alley from about the top of Texas all the way up to North Dakota. We had a really bad windstorm with snow, and it was taking the tops out, just like you guys. It was taking the tops out of poles, everything, just like what you guys were experiencing. It's just one in every three poles snapped, just junk. And my brother fired up his mast, got on the shortwave and everything, because he's a ham operator, and he goes, okay, what's going on around here? And that was the best information that everybody could get. And he goes, okay, well, South Central Public Power is coming out. They're here, they're there. And, he had real-time updates on all the guys coming out and working on poles, everything, and it was great. I was out 4.5 days and had 2 generators, and had one down at my feed yard to water all the cattle, keep the fencers up and everything. Good stuff. The one gap I wish, here's the one little thing that we would tweak on that, is going into my house on my personal, is I wish I didn't have a cord going into the house. I wish I had a cord going out of the house off of the main bus, coming off of the actual breaker box in there, just to have a plug-in on the 110 side, even just on the 110 side, just to do the lights and all the little stuff, just plug straight into, would have been great. As far as hot water and all that stuff, I brought up a John Deere 4440 with a 220 on a 3-point, wired it straight into the bus, into the panel right out there. And, just for like a couple hours, just to get that hot water and everything built back up, and just like Jeff and all the guys on the panel here, wood stove. So it wasn't a big deal on heat, it's just getting everything circulated and everything like that. So I have to make a little bit more concessions for as far as the 220 side of it to get that big fan going. And that's the only thing that sucks, is because I've got wood heat, but I don't have a real good way to circulate it because it takes 220 to get that fan going and circulate it all the way through the house. That's the only bad thing, is heat, but no fan. So, yeah, that's something I'm going to have to look into down the road. But yeah, that was the one big major thing that I was like, yeah, I have the heat, but I just don't have the way to circulate it. So that sucks.
Yeah, that I can definitely understand.
Yep.
Mhm.
So in your house, you have just one fan to circulate all the heat from the wood stove?
Well, I have multiple fans, just on the 110 to spread it out
Mhm.
and get it to go upstairs. But as far as the central air unit
Mm.
goes, it's on 220
Okay.
with the
Yes.
fan to get it sucked up. Because here's what I did, just to break it down a little bit. Right above me, I've got all my rails and everything up here, and I cut a hole in the floor to my central air unit, so that way if I want to kick my fan on when my wood heat is going
Yep.
down here, it sucks all that heat up into the central
Oh,
air,
okay.
and it's great. It works fantastic. But if I don't have that 220 fan working, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the wood stove, great, because Jeff will attest to this, and Gunny will attest to this. Wood stove is great as long as you can get it moved around.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That was our biggest problem in '98. The first ice
Mm-hmm.
storm was
Yep.
we had no power in the house. 2 wood stoves, one upstairs, one downstairs. But how do you get the heat around?
Yep. Exactly. Because we had the exact same problem, because there was those, you guys have the same structures we do around here, and all those metal structures look like crumpled Tinker
Yep.
toys,
Mhm.
and they were just down.
Old maids.
Oh my God, that was ugly.
No, crazy.
What?
Any other final thoughts from any panelists, or anything else you want to point out or chat about?
Well, I guess if I could add one thing, there was a
Yeah,
few
of course.
folks, because the internet was out and cellular was out. Some folks would go to get gas and things, and they didn't have cash, and all the debit and credit
Uh-huh.
machines were down. So it caught a few people by surprise,
Mhm.
but very early on in this, before things started to get sorted out. After things started, it was better. But for the first few days, yeah, it caught a few people with their pants down there. That one did.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah. So have a little cash.
We quickly
Always
went
good to
back to
have
the
some cash.
70s there, didn't we?
Yep. Yes, sir, Terry.
we had to
Right?
talk to each other. Like, who'd have thought we'd have to talk?
Right.
Exactly.
What is this talking thing you speak of?
I know, right? This is strange. That's weird.
So I when the first day, or like, the power went out on this and the storm was overnight Saturday. So Sunday I had the generator running, and so Monday morning I thought, okay, I'm just going to find around if there's propane open. I'm not desperate. I'm in a good spot. I've got several days, but I'm not going to wait till I desperately need. So I called around, and there was a place just south of Gravenhurst, and they were open. So same thing. I didn't know if their debit worked or whatever. So I just took cash with me, and they had debit, but if they didn't, I still had a way to pay for to pay for my propane. So
Nicely.
Have a backup to your backup.
Yep.
exactly.
That's the place you asked me to kind of notify people about over the ham radio, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't know. I'm not saying the guy at Costco lied to me, but when I called on the Monday, I called them and they said, "Yep, the store's open. We don't have enough power to do propane. We're not doing propane." And they're hooking up a generator to the gas pumps, and we'll have gas this afternoon. I said, "Okay, no problem." So Wednesday, somebody said, "Hey, I got my." I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go back to this place in Gravenhurst, get propane. Does anybody need propane?" And they're like, "Well, why are you going up there? Costco's got propane."
Of course.
Oh, okay. So I called just to make sure, and it obviously was a different person. I said, "You guys got propane." "Oh yeah, we've had propane from the very beginning."
Of course.
Jeepers.
Right.
So I was like, "Okay." So yep,
You got to go for a tour, Jeff.
I did.
Assholes.
Yeah,
I
but
did.
sometimes you can chalk that up to miscommunication. That one person didn't know that they were going to do
Yeah.
the propane, and somebody else said,
And,
"Oh, we're going to
and,
put the
and,
propane."
and I'm fine with that. Like I said, I wasn't
Right.
at that desperate spot yet.
Yeah.
So, and that's if there's anything else that I could throw out there and kind of put to people is, if you need something like propane or like fuel or whatever, don't be like everybody else and wait until your gas gauge says E to put gas in your tank. Or like
Exactly.
I knew this storm was coming. I filled my truck. I filled 2 gas cans because my backup to my backup is a gas generator.
Mhm.
All my propane tanks were full. Everything was. And right away on Monday, I started scoping. Where can I get propane? Where can I get,
Yep.
and somebody said, "Oh, there's a gas station out on Highway 12 towards Midland, and they're open." But like Eric said, the lineup was down the highway,
Mhm.
and they were taking, and it was $20. It wasn't 20 liters. $20 was what each person was allowed to get, and that was it.
Wow.
Jesus.
And they still ran out of fuel.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yep.
surprised.
Well,
at
people
that. They
freaked
ran
out, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Sure they did.
Yep. Yep. Pretty much.
Should have had a little fuel ahead of time.
The first day that Costco, they got the generator up
Mhm.
and the fuel pumps were running, 9:00 at night, they still had a lineup down the road and the next day they ran out.
Yep.
So it was.
I popped in the Costco about 4 days after they opened. I didn't need gas, but I'd used a little bit, so I just brought the jerry cans, topped them up because there was no lineup, and out I went.
Yep.
It was kind of funny to just watch people kind of, I haven't been able to get this forever. Go.
Oh crap.
And by forever, I mean a couple days. Right? But, it's top them up, and they're just the ones that I use for like the snowblower, the lawn tractor, like nothing crazy, but just top them up just in case.
You betcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, all in all, it was an interesting adventure and a very good test of our preps and a good validation of why we do what we do. I think from the
Absolutely.
sounds of it, the panelists came out pretty much unscathed, except Jeff's roof, which took a bit of a beating.
Yeah.
But
and
we had
and you would
Well, my woodshed. Yeah,
You woodshed.
It is.
It
It is
took a
what
dive.
it is what it is. But this kind of had a little bit of everything. You know, we had a bug out situation for Jeff, who made the decision that it was time to go, time to get out of Dodge for a bit. We had pretty much all of our main infrastructure around us go down for a period of time.
Mhm.
But we all made it through.
Yeah.
And we were all, for the most part,
Yep.
unscathed, right? It's we
Yeah.
did quite well. It's good to see that that everybody's dedication and ability to just kind of foresee things and be prepared worked out.
Yep.
And
Well,
you would
if you
like-
don't mind, 2 seconds. Week before everybody got hit by this ice storm, I got hit by a winter storm with 80-mile-per-hour winds that just
Ooh.
about did the exact same thing to everybody up in your guys' area.
Yep.
It just loaded it up, snapped it off, just, broke it off. I mean, so yeah, we were in the same boat a week before everybody else,
Crazy.
but at the same time, there was a lot of guys still in the same boat
Mhm.
when you guys were getting hit.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a nasty storm system. Even
Sure
5 days
was.
later, when that thing wrapped around and hit you guys, it was just ouch.
Mhm.
Oh man, I don't wish this thing upon anybody, especially Jeff, because brother, I don't wish that upon anybody. Being out that long. So
Yeah, but like Eric said, it was a huge test of my prep. And
yeah, exactly.
You know what? Don't get me wrong. I'm usually not one to toot my own horn and pat my own back, but I'm going to in this case because I went 12 days without hydro, and I'm basically, as Eric said, I'm basically unscathed. So,
Perfect. You did your job. You prepped.
Yep.
You prepped preparedly. So awesome.
It's awesome. That was really, really good to see, and it's been good to hear all the stories as well. And we learned some lessons. I think for everybody it was kind of just a few little things that we're going to change.
Yeah.
But this kind of validates at least our preparedness as far as power outage goes. We're all ready to go there, and
Yeah,
we reset. We change the oil. We change the spark plugs, and we get back at it. Right.
yep, that's right. That's all a guy can do.
Yep.
Prep again for the next one.
You got it.
And
You got it.
Frugal Gunny, you have the best background. It looks like you're in Nebraska. I love that orange and pink, and I love that sunset.
Thanks, man. That's from the far north, about an hour north of Long Lac in Ontario. I went moose hunting there in 2019, and this was just the most amazing sunset. And
Nice.
so, yeah, all the backgrounds I've got are all photos I've taken out there in the bush. So I'll keep featuring new
Fantastic.
ones every time I get on.
That looked exactly like Nebraska several times during the summer.
Man,
So,
I'll go there any
that's
day then, brother.
Beautiful. Beautiful,
All right.
brother.
Shall we move into upcoming events? Go with
Yes,
Terry.
Okay. Well, we got the old annual Preppers Meet coming up here in July,
Yes.
7th to the 13th. Mark your calendars and come on down. Go to preppersmeet.com, Facebook, or on the internet website, and schedules up for the most part. Tells you what's coming up and what's going to be going on which days. So it's going to be a good event. We're going to have a good time, I think.
It's always a great event. We might even talk about ice storms this year.
We might. We might.
Really?
I'm sure that'll be part of the conversation sitting around the campfire. That's for sure.
I'm sure it might be.
Yep.
Awesome. Jeff, you got a weather blurb.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, we're an hour and a half in, but I think it was a great show and a great, just the way that things went. So obviously, there's been a lot of severe weather over the last few weeks. Pat and his windstorm there, us with the ice storm. There was a tornado outbreak There were several significant tornadoes. And on top of that,
Oh,
the way
those
that
poor bastards.
the storms went, it was a train. So it was storm after storm. So you were getting flooding, flood warnings, flood emergencies, all that kinds of stuff. So obviously, as we discussed here, that we've had that bad ice storm. It affected the UP of Michigan, Central Ontario, other areas. And that can be expected this time of the year, more or less spring and fall. You get that battle between the cold and the warm, and that's when you get severe weather. So there is the chance that there could be some more severe weather through the mid-U.S., up through the Ohio Valley, and maybe even into sort of Pat's area for later on in the week and maybe into the weekend. So just keep your as I always say, just keep your thing about you and don't be scared. Be prepared. And I mean, that just doesn't.
If you're not
after everything
wrong,
that's happened,
because nasty stuff coming. Well, it's spring, nasty stuff. Always is.
Yep.
All right, quick deal of the week. Thanks to Pierre, Princess Auto 4-pack ammo cans, almost half price, $29.99. So head on over to your favorite site, Princess Auto, there, and grab yourself a deal because
they're totally
why
worth it.
not?
I have 3 sets of them.
I've got a few of them as well. They are fantastic. Might have to get another one that just stores some extra flashlights in now.
Yeah.
And batteries.
But label this one kids.
Yes.
We should get Princess to sponsor us for the
Is
amount
that
of links
in
that we
the 30 millimeter can or the 50 ammo can?
I think these are the 30s, right?
Yeah, they're 30 cals.
Yeah, they're fantastic. But with that, I'll bring episode number 265 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or really your favorite podcast app. We're pretty much on all of them now. Please do submit a review. It does encourage the algorithm slightly to promote us for about 30 seconds until they realize what we're talking about. And then we get pushed back down to the bottom. But it does help other people find us.
Yeah, pretty much.
And before I go into my blurb, I just wanted to throw a shout out there to all of the hydro linemen that were out there that were working in some pretty shitty conditions.
Good call.
You know, they take some grief sometimes, like everybody, about you know, the amount of pay they get or how many breaks they take and all this stuff. But when the crap happened and they really needed to be there, they stepped up.
Really?
And you know,
Yeah,
so
point.
it was greatly appreciated.
They
So
work
we do
pretty
record
hard.
these shows live on YouTube, Facebook as well. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we're going live. Anybody wants to reach out to me or, you know, wants to see some pictures of the carnage at the house, it's feedback at prepperpodcast.ca.
Those are some good pictures, that's for sure, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody wants to reach out, it's batbradcpp@gmail.com. And I'm on the Discord frequently.
And you can reach me at the annual Peppers Meet Facebook page or my personal email at terrylblackmore@hotmail.com.
Frugal. Or I guess we're going for Pat, aren't we?
Yep.
Oh.
Sure.
Lost my spot. Go ahead, Frugal.
All right. So you can find me on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and the CPP Discord, as well as in person at the annual Preppers Meet this summer.
Right on.
Awesome.
All right.
All right,
And yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Pat in the Bunker. And anything else, if you need to get a hold of me for any reason whatsoever, if you want to gripe or anything like that, you can find me cruising 165 at yahoo.com. So anyway, that wraps it up.
Awesome. All right. And if you want to check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com, you can get me there on the live chat. You can also email feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.
Stay safe. Carry your weapon.